Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing the 100 mile review of the ASICS Jolt 3. It's the last of the 3 budget shoes I bought at the start of the year. In terms of a budget shoe rotation, it was an experiment I've decided to do this year to buy 3 budget shoes, see how I get on as part of my half marathon training. So today we're going to cover the 100 mile review for the ASICS Jolt 3. Let's dive straight in. Yeah, so as I just mentioned, I bought the New Balance 680 V7, the Adidas Duramo 10 and the ASICS Jolt 3. Yeah, so there were 3 shoes. I decided to implement them into my half marathon training to see how good budget shoes really are. I've utilised them all over the last several months. I've now hit 100 miles in the ASICS Jolt 3, which was the last of the 3 shoes to hit that mark. So today I'm going to cover my 100 mile review. If you haven't watched the other 100 mile reviews or the other initial runs, then feel free to look back through the running gear playlist. You'll find I also tagged them in the description below, so look through those if you're interested in how the budget shoes have been getting on. It's been quite a popular series of videos, these ones, so I'll obviously do some more in the future in terms of budget shoes and how good and how bad they are. So today we're going to dive into the 100 mile review. I'll review the outsole, midsole, upper. I'll give it a durability score and a value score as well, and we'll do an overall score to see how they've actually got on as part of my half marathon training. Yeah, so the whole aim of this budget shoe experiment was I don't tend to spend a lot of money on my running shoes. I don't have a large surplus and budget in terms of buying all my running shoes. They are obviously a perishable item. They do wear down and you do have to replace them on a fairly regular basis. Running tops, running shorts, etc. last obviously years and years. Running shoes are a bit more of a commodity in terms of the perish and you have to repurchase them. So I always think finding value or finding good value in running shoes is obviously of paramount importance to me specifically, but obviously presumably for other runners as well. So the initial point of this was to buy 3 really cheap shoes. So I basically got this ASICS Jolt 3, the Adidas Duramo 10 and the New Balance 680 V7. I bought all 3 right at the end of 2022 in preparation for 2023, and I bought them all for less than £117. So obviously it's less than £40 each, which was really budget for most running shoes these days. If you try and find a running shoe for less than £40, you're going to do quite well to find one. So I found 3, obviously as an average, and I've basically done a review of all the other 2. Now it's the turn of the ASICS Jolt 3. So yeah, I'll start with the outsole as I do with most of my reviews. Yeah, I always start with the outsole as one of the most kind of polarising points of a running shoe. I'll do obviously as normal. I'll do some close-ups as I'm talking. So yeah, the outsole is really positive of this shoe. There's probably a bit too much rubber. However, the rubber is really a really firm rubber. It's got no issue with grip. It's probably one of the better grippy shoes of the 3. Good coverage, and again, as you can see in the close-ups, there's very limited wear and tear, if anything at all, after 100 miles. So I think the durability is going to be there, but I'll get onto durability a little bit later. But yeah, grip's good. Ground feel's not massively there, so I think there's quite a big thick veneer of rubber on these. Probably doesn't need quite as much. However, ASICS are kind of renowned for lasting. They don't tend to do soft rubber or thin veneers of rubber unless you go into the racing side of the shoes. The entry level stuff tends to be last. So the outsole is a positive. It's got really good grip. I've had no issues with slipping. I've done it in dry conditions, obviously wet conditions. I've run slightly off-road in it in terms of light trails, etc., and I've had no issues whatsoever with grip. So overall, as a quick outsole score, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's not got many problems. It's just it is quite a weighty shoe, which I'll get into weight in a minute. I'll go through stats and facts in a second. So it's got a bit too much weight, so it's a bit of a clumpy shoe, and as well with the outsole in terms of the shape, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but there's not a particularly prominent rocker whatsoever. It's a fairly flat shoe. I'll go into my uses for it in a second, but I've found limited use for this shoe. But yeah, the rocker's not particularly cohesive to a smooth running gait, running cycle in terms of flicking through the running motion. It's quite a lot of rubber on there, so it feels quite a heavy shoe. So yeah, the outsole will be marked down slightly for those 2 reasons, but grip and durability seems pretty good. But overall, yeah, 7 out of 10 for the outsole. So yeah, quickly a few stats and facts. I purchased these for £33 at the end of last year. So obviously really budget, entry level. It was the cheapest shoe at the time on sports shoes. I've now done 100 miles in these. In terms of weight, The ASICS Jolt 3, my UK size 11, weighs 342 grams, which is 12 ounces. So again, on the heavier side for any level of shoe. Entry level shoes obviously are generally around the 250 plus mark, maybe 300 grams roughly. So this is obviously a heavy shoe regardless of what you compare it to. I probably should have gone half size down. ASICS sometimes do run a bit long for me. I probably should have gone for a 10.5, would have took a bit of weight off and maybe helped me with the running cycle in terms of the gait. But yeah, the drop, I'll put all the rest of the details on the screen in terms of the drop. So yeah, so there's a couple of minor drawbacks with it. Obviously, so I say it's quite a heavy shoe. It feels quite heavy. I think I said on my initial run, if you haven't watched that on the initial night, I found it quite a clumpy shoe, particularly responsive, quite heavy, and it felt like I was doing a lot of the work. I'll go into the midsole now. As I've used it more and more, I've found the kind of sweet spot for it, I suppose. Obviously, it's a budget shoe. So we know it's never going to be an all singing, all dancing racing shoe, super shoe, long distance shoe, recovery day shoe, etc. It was obviously going to be a bit niche-y in terms of what it could potentially provide. Midsole wise, I found it a really firm ride. Therefore, I've tended to use it more for the shorter, quicker stuff. Hence why it took a bit longer to hit the 100 miles. In this particular shoe, the Duramo 10 and the New Balance are a bit more of an all-round daily trainer. Can be used for a bit more things. I wouldn't want to do a long distance run in this just purely because of the impact and the firmness of the foam. It's not a particularly comfortable shoe. It's not uncomfortable, but it's just not for long time on feet. The firmness I felt would lend itself better to the quicker stuff. Obviously, with not having much give, you would be able to maintain the pace and you wouldn't sap your energy when you're doing shorter, faster speed to work stuff. So I actually set a 5k PB in this earlier in the year. I've since broken that with another shoe, but it can get up to pace. It is better at pace in my opinion. So the midsole is really firm. It's not got a lot of give. So again, I've tended to use it for shorter, faster speed work stuff. So in terms of the midsole score, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10, purely because it is quite a small window. I think it's best used for. You can use it for longer stuff. I know the people have obviously got these shoes and have used them for longer runs. My personal opinion is the better at shorter, faster speed work stuff, purely because of the firmness, and that's the better window for what it's best at, in my opinion. So quickly move on to the upper now. It's probably one of the biggest points, the biggest positives of the shoe. Really good breathability. It's not gusseted. But the lockdown is pretty easy to get to. The laces is good enough quality. The tongue and the heel cup have got pretty good padding. Not plush, but just enough. Any less would be potentially not enough. You might get a bit of rubbing and discomfort. Any more, and it's just excessive. The tongue is just enough. There's not a lot of padding in the tongue, but enough to keep the pressure off the top of the foot. A really solid heel counter. It's pretty much immovable. That's pretty much all my effort there, and it's almost immovable. So really solid protection at the back. Again, they've obviously because it's budget, they've gone for solid, durable, dependable, as opposed to speed, comfort, and performance to some extent, which is what I expected. Hence why, but again, this is what I expected, and that's what I'm getting. So yeah, the upper is one of the more positives. Really good breathability. There's maybe a little bit too much material. Again, that could potentially be down to the sizing. So again, when you really bunch the laces down, you get a bit of gathering at the bottom of the toe box there, at the bottom of the lacing. But again, that could be because I've got a slightly a bigger size. But yeah, overall the upper is probably, like I say, one of the major positives. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, there's not much I can mark it down on. The lockdown's good, the breathability is good, comfort's fine. There's a bit too much excess material. Maybe the toe box is a little bit wide. But the minor little finicky points I'm picking out. So yeah, overall for the upper, real positive is 8.5 out of 10. So we'll quickly move on now to value. I always give a value score, and it's hard to in terms of how do you put a score on value. What is value? To me, value is obviously a combination of different things, but if it's an expensive shoe but isn't particularly good or isn't particularly long lasting, then that isn't really good value. Obviously these are budget shoes, so I picked this up for £33, so in terms of value, it was always going to have a good chance of getting a decent value score. In terms of performance, so it's got a limited amount of performance. It doesn't do a lot of things well. It's not going to be a long recovery day shoe. I wouldn't use it for any races specifically because of the weight of it and the fact that it's not easy to run in. It's not a training aid when I'm running. It doesn't help me along. If anything, it's the opposite. I see it almost like as a training tool. The fact if I can do a good run in these shoes, then when I get in a better pair of shoes, everything should seem easier, feel easier. So it's almost like running with a weighted vest on as such. In the moment, it doesn't feel easy and enjoyable, but after the fact, you might get the benefits of it. So yeah, so in terms of value, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10, just for the fact it's £33. It's probably going to do 400-500 miles, 700-800k before I can see any kind of wearing away. The midsole's that firm, it can't really deteriorate too much. It's not going to get really firm because it was a previously softer midsole. The outsole's obviously got plentiful rubber. It's presumably going to last for a good amount of time. The uppers generally don't go anywhere these days on modern running shoes. They're not going to rip and tear, etc. So yeah, I can see it lasting a decent amount of time. So for £33, if I get 400-500 miles out of it, I can't grumble. It's a solid, dependable daily trainer. It's not particularly exciting, but it does the job. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for value. I briefly just touched upon it there in terms of the mileage. I think it's going to do 400-500 mile plus. So therefore the durability score, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I don't think you can ask for much more than that in any running shoe these days. I mean, a lot of these modern super shoes will do less than that for a lot more money. So if you get anywhere near 400 plus miles out of a running shoe, I think most people are generally happy with that. I think these will definitely do that, probably more. Recently I've been getting at least 500 miles out of most of my running shoes before I can start to think about are they starting to get to the end of the lifespan. I've just gone past 500 miles in the Reebok Float Ride Energy 3, which I've had that for nearly 2 years now, and I said I've been chipping away at that, and that's just gone past 500 and maybe it's now starting to be towards the end of its lifespan where I'm maybe getting a few niggles after a longer run or a particularly quicker run with the midsole starting to die, but again that's a softer foam. So yeah, quick summary. ASICS Jolt 3, it's probably my least favourite of the 3 shoes, obviously within that budget rotation. It was also the cheapest of the 3. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was probably a bit more disappointed. I'm probably a bit disappointed with the sheer weight of the shoe and the geometry of the shoe in terms of it's not the most smoothest ride. My favourite of the 3 shoes is the Adidas Duramo 10 still probably, and that's just because again it's got everything the ASICS doesn't have. It feels light on foot. The rocker and the geometry of the shoe is just nice to run in. It's got a thinner veneer of rubber which gives you a bit more ground feel. The foam is slightly more soft and therefore is a bit more comfortable. I can do a bit of everything in that shoe. And that was only, I think it was £1 or £2 more when I purchased that one for 35 or something like that pounds. So I think I mentioned on one of the other videos that would be the one I'd grab. If anyone's got any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the comments. But if anyone asked me which of the 3 shoes I would go and get again, it would be the Adidas Duramo 10. Regardless of RRP or value or cost, I would go and grab that shoe. But yeah, the ASICS Jolt 3, just to wrap up. Solid, dependable daily trainer. If you're just starting out and you only got 1 shoe in your rotation and you're only going to be doing shorter stuff initially, then it's nothing wrong with it. It's fine, grab it. It's a good, solid, dependable daily trainer. You can do different types of workouts in it, short bursts of speed. You can just go on a nice easy jog, recovery run. Actually, it isn't the most comfortable. It isn't the most performance-based shoe, obviously, because it's not. It's £33. It's the entry level. But yeah, any runners out there who are just starting out, who just want a shoe to get on your foot and be able to get out the door, there's nothing wrong with the ASICS Jolt 3. So that's my summary. Yeah, if my scores are correct, 39 out of 50, so 78%. I think that's a point or so, 1 point or so behind the other shoes. So they're all within the same kind of ballpark, but they've all actually performed pretty well. I was unsure at the start of the year if I would be able to implement them as within the rotation of my half marathon training. I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to be utilised for half marathon training, especially with a longer mileage. I thought with it being budget shoes, they may well underperform and not be suitable. But no, they've all done really well. They're all part of the budget shoe rotation. I'm using them all as part of my half marathon training, which is only in a couple of weeks. They will be continued to be used throughout the rest of the year for my other half marathon towards the end of the year. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the purchases I've made, the choices I've made. I will be doing obviously more budget shoes stuff next year. I'll probably buy another batch of budget shoes and review those as well. So yeah. Any comments, any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting the subscribe button. My half marathon training will continue in the coming weeks. Look out for the race day vlog in a couple of weeks' time. I do appreciate everyone watching. If you're still watching all the way through to the end, then thank you very much. I said ask anything in the comments. I will respond to all questions and queries. And happy running, but look out for upcoming vlogs, and I will see everyone on the next one.